Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chapter 4 of Global Business. This chapter will be discussing the role of culture in international business. Again, this video will be approximately 20-25 minutes long. Please, pay attention. If you have any questions or concerns about anything that we go over, please always feel free to call me. All right, and our learning objectives for this semester is that we're going to discuss the primary characteristics of culture. What is culture? What it's made up of? And describe how those elements of culture have influence on international business. Okay, and we're going to identify what means by which a member of culture communicate with each other. All right, every culture communicates differently, either through verbal or nonverbal ways, but there is subtle differences in the way people go about communicating with one another. And we're also going to discuss how religion and theology and our theocracy, how that has an impact on culture and how that culture deals with international business. Okay? Just by definition, culture is the collection of values, beliefs, behaviors, customs, and attitudes that distinguish one society from one another. All right? Culture is learned behavior. All right? When I mean to say learned behavior, it's transmitted from one member of society to another. All right, you learn it. All right, you learn from your parents. All right, how to do things. You learn from your friends. You learn from the TV. You learn through your sports heroes or other leaders. Through people who are learning their behaviors from our political environment right now. All right, so culture, your values, beliefs, your behaviors, for the most part, are learned behavior. All these things are interrelated and adopted and shared by those of a community. Our culture is shared by members of society and defines memberships of its society. Okay, if you part of a community, you need to share those various cultures, or you're might be ostracized out. All right, just thinking about culture. Sorry, I'm doing two things at once, and I apologize. Elements of culture. Culture has an effect on language, how we communicate, our values and attitudes, our social structure, and our religion. All right, so culture, all these things interplay with one another, or section with one another. Language, communication, social structure, attitude, and religion. All right. How culture deals with social structure? It defines family. All right. What is a family? I mean, how is a family defined? I mean, that's always a good thing. Is a family just because you're biological? Does that make you a family? Just because you're all the same race, does that make you a family? Just because you're an adoptive family? I mean, the concept of family is interesting. How do you define it? And I want you to think about that. How do you define what a family is? Does it have to be biological? Could it be something else? Could it be adopted? Could it be just all of a sudden just a group of people who find commonality in themselves? But within that family, everyone's going to have their individual role. All right, someone will take leadership. All right, someone will be more nurturing. Someone will take on the role of being the drama person. All right, so within that family, when you're defining the family, just think about that. Everybody within that family is going to have their individual roles, and they're all important relative to the group. All right, you need somebody to be nurturing. You need somebody to be a leader, a decision maker, and these all play within that social structure. Some societies, when you talk about social structure, you talk about social mobility. All right, some cultures there's very low social mobility. You're born into a certain class, you're born into a certain segment of the populace, and that's where you are. Okay, that's basically, you're born into that class and there's no mobility. Sometimes you're born rich and you could lose it all and be considered lower middle class or lower class. But in the United States, the dream is to grow, to succeed, to move forward. So in the United States, we have high social mobility. Okay. Social mobility is the ability of individuals to move from one stratum of society to another. Okay. Social mobility tends to be higher in less stratified societies. All right. So the more structured it is, the harder it is to move between the groups. Okay. When I say social stratification, basic to every society is a social structure. All right. Social societies differ in the way they define family and the relative importance they place on the individuals within the group. Like I said, highly stratified societies, it's harder to move between the different social classes. Less stratified, it's easier to move. Just remember that. And just be aware of that when you're dealing with the global business. All right? So if you're going into society with a highly stratified structure, you're going to have to come in at a certain level in order for a certain level of people to talk to you or to have to conduct business with you. All right? Language. Let's talk about language a little bit. Language delineates cultural groups. All right? Language is important. All right? Language is the primary delineator of cultural groups. We all have various language. I mean, we speak English here. In France, they speak French. In Italy, they speak Italian. And throughout the African continent, they speak hundreds of different languages. Even within Switzerland, I think there's 3 or 4 national languages that they speak within the country. Language organizes the way members of society think about the world. All right, it's really interesting to think about. I mean, in the United States, we predominantly, for the most part, I'm generalizing here, we speak English. Right? We don't really speak 2 languages in this country. And some parts of the world just look at us like, well, that's ignorant. And to a certain extent, that's true. So, it's important in global business for you to learn languages, understand languages. If you're going to be dealing with Germany, you might want to start thinking about learning German. Okay? It's interesting about language, too, is that within a country, within a language, there are certain levels of language within. Right? You can tell that somebody is from an elite class, and I put that in quotes, by the way they speak. You can tell somebody is from a lower class by the way they speak, their grammar, their the way they say their words. All right? All right? It gives you a great indication when you're traveling in global business about the diversity of a country's population. Okay, and how many various players you may have to deal with. Okay, just think about language. What I think about when language, especially in global business, is being familiar with the language, being proficient if you can. It goes a long way in solidifying deals, especially in the global market. Most of my work is done in either Italy or Spain. I can speak a little bit. I'm trying to get better, but I understand the importance of it. All right. The predominant languages throughout the world, though, are English and France. So just be careful. When I'm out there about translations too, you may want to document translated. But just be careful because the translation may not be accurate. There may have different meanings to different words. So make sure if you're translating documents that you use a certified translator and that they understand that there are certain nuances and certain things within a language. All right? When you're dealing in global business, especially with culture, and as opposed more than just language, you're going to also deal with communication. All right? How do you shake hands? How do you greet people? The intonation of how they speak to you. Is there eye contact? Shouldn't there be eye contact? Right? There's sometimes you shouldn't look somebody in the eye in certain cultures. Where they position themselves. Okay, whether is it formal, informal. I mean, even in different languages, there's a formal and an informal way of speaking to people. So when you start dealing in global business, you really need to understand how to communicate these nonverbal communications also and what they mean. You know, in Italy, when I was dealing with Italy, I was shocked the first time I signed a contract because the person kissed me. I mean, they kissed me on the cheek, both cheeks. I mean, I'm a guy from the Bronx. I mean, no guys, the guys don't kiss. But the gentleman from the team stood up, walked from around the desk, and kissed me on both my cheeks. Okay, it happens. But I wasn't familiar with that. Now I'm familiar with it. Now I know. Now I am more accepting of it. Now I'm more not taken back by it. But you need to learn this in the global market. What expressions mean? What, should you shake hands? What the inflections in their voice mean? Eye contact, those kind of things. All right. Also, with that, in certain communities, do you bring gifts? I mean, it will be looked at as an insult to bring a gift. And what if you do? I mean, in certain instances, gift giving and hospitality are important means of communications. All right, Japanese business etiquette requires hospitality. All right, you're going to be very hospitable when you're dealing with Japan. Elaborate meals and after-hour entertainment serve to build personal bonds and group harmony among the participants. All right, these personal bonds are strengthened by the exchange of gifts. All right, so you can deal with Japanese businesses or Japanese business people. You need to understand that entertainment is part of their culture. All right, and gifts are part of their culture, and it's going to be accepting, and you need to be accepting of that. All right. So when you're going to do, let's say you're dealing with a company in Zambia, you need to be aware of the gift etiquettes, the hospitality customs, before you go over there. All right. Another thing you need to be aware of when traveling in the global business world is religion and the effect of religion. Okay, religion is important in most societies, right, to a certain extent. It affects the way its members of society relate to one another and relate to outsiders. Right? So various customs throughout the world. Christianity makes up 31.5% of the world, as opposed to Buddhism, which is 7.1. I mean, if you're going to be traveling to a country, you may want to find out what the dominant religion is, all right, and what the customs and languages are within that religion. Right, if you're traveling in the Middle East, there's certain protocols, certain things, certain religious beliefs that you need to be aware of in order to do business. What days you can conduct business, how contracts are signed. All right, these are all what you need to familiarize yourself with. Religion, like I said, shapes attitudes. All right, can be also constraints on society. I mean, women in certain countries can't, because of religious beliefs, can't do things. Aren't allowed to negotiate. Aren't allowed to sign contracts. They have an effect on buying. You know, certain religions you can't buy certain products on certain days. Okay, so you need to be aware when you're dealing with certain countries that what the religious practices are and how that is going to impact your international business. All right, and something you also need to think about is tolerance. You know, if you're a woman businessman traveling into a country that a female businesswoman traveling to a country, you know, so these countries may frown upon women in business. I mean, that's no reflection on you. You may be the perfect person for this job, and you probably are the perfect person for this job. But you got to be sensitive. Not that it's right. I'm not saying it's right, but you need to be sensitive of the country that you're dealing with and understand it and work within that. Okay, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying just give up. I'm just saying work within those constraints and understand what the tolerance levels are. All right. Different cultures have different values and attitudes towards time. All right. Some cultures, time is important. You need to be there. You have a meeting at 2:00. You need to be there at 2. If you walk in late, it's insulting. Some cultures, you need to be there 15 minutes early. Some cultures is a little more lax. Attitudes about time differ dramatically across countries. All right, and we think time is money. So why are you wasting my time? Time is money. Time represents an opportunity to create more and more money, and if you waste it, you're affecting me and affecting my business. Age is also an important culture. Okay, youthfulness is considered a virtue here in the United States, but in other countries, not so much. Youth is looked at as they're ignorant. They aren't seasoned. They aren't experienced. So, you need to be aware of those attitudes and those values towards both time, age. Education is another one. All right. And, everybody jokes here in St. Louis, what high school did you go to? That there's a significance to that. That's the culture here. What high school did you go to? Because it has certain significance to certain people about certain, so they can generalize about you. All right, so you got to be careful of and understand the values and attitudes that different countries have towards time, age, education, and just your status in general. All right. Way to, table 4.2, examples of low and high context cultures. Take a look at that, study this, the difference between low context cultures and high context cultures. Germany's very low context, whereas, Spain is very high context. And what I'm going to ask you on the quiz, I'm probably going to ask you a question about this, and I want you to talk about the various differences between low context and high context cultures. Okay? And again, all right. Moving forward, we need to discuss cultural approach. All right. Many international businesses instinctively use the culture cluster approach in formulating their international strategies. All right. So read about how these cultural clusters, what's the differences between and developing your international strategy and your foreign market entry methods. All right, it's very interesting. Seeing the Hofstede's 5 dimensionals between social, power, orientations, uncertainty. Really take a look at this stuff and analyze it. Okay. And how it's broken down the 5 dimensions of culture and how that's going to have an effect on your business. All right, so really want you to dive into that. Think about it. If you have any questions on it, call me. It's very complex to go in through the this PowerPoint, but through this video. But I want you to really think about it. And there's probably going to be a question on the quiz. All right. And then also between social orientation, between collectivism and individualism. All right, collectivism, in certain societies and social orientations, children learn to think in terms of we, all right, as opposed to certain countries, it's I, all right. Some countries, education focuses on how to do things as opposed to how to learn things, all right. So these are all different techniques I want you to think about when it comes to your international business. All right. Let's go through the tables, go through the goals, think about seeing the forest, not the trees, all that kind of stuff. These will all be questions that are going to be asked on the final, on the quiz. All right, but I really want you to start thinking about culture globally, as opposed to just our single-mindedness, the way we do things is the right way, the way we do things is the only way. No, there are many, many, many different points of view on this. Start thinking about it and analyzing it and be ahead of the game, especially when you're dealing with global business. If you're going to deal with certain countries, you need to understand their languages, their culture, their culture, their languages within that culture, religion within that culture, how their society is structured, the importance of age, the importance of gender, the importance of timing. All right. So if you have any questions, any concerns, please feel free to contact me and we'll discuss. Thank you.